The following review is intended for entertainment purposes and targeted for adult fans of the series.
The other Rangers tell Izzy to focus on the race, that they'll take care of this. I know words. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Dino Fury episode review. Couple of quick things that I need to address before we get started. First of all, I've been getting some concerned comments on some of my recent videos, and it seems like I'm getting a few more than I usually do at the start of a new season, so I wanted to go ahead and address this. No, I did not hit my head. In case any of you haven't happened to notice, I have a small little lump above my left temple. Growing up, I was told that it's a sebaceous cyst, but looking into that, that involves trapped excretions from a gland and grows slowly over time. This has not grown in forever. It might be a lipoma or some other benign little lump. But that's the important thing. I promise you it is completely benign. It's just a little ball that's sitting there and not hurting anything. I don't want anyone to feel bad if they did ask me what it is. I appreciate the concern, and everyone I know notices it eventually when I turn to just the right angle. There's just not really a need for me to spend the money to have it removed when it's not hurting anything. The second thing I need to address is actually far more bothersome than a little lump on the head. New seasons bring in new viewers who don't really seem to know how my show and channel work, so let me explain some things. Number one, the Orange Ranger is a character, an exaggeration of my own personality. If the Orange Ranger screams and rants about comic relief characters on a children's television show, you can rest assured that Sean is not losing any sleep over it. Number two, this is my show and my channel, and I am going to review Power Rangers the way I want to review Power Rangers. You can feel free to insist in comment after comment that Power Rangers is just a kid's show, and stupid slapstick comedy is something we just have to accept because that's just the way it is. I have never believed that, and I'm not going to start now. Steven Universe, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Gravity Falls. Sure, these shows may involve slapstick in some way or another, but they handle it a lot better even when they do. I know what Power Rangers is. I'm not expecting this show to ever win an Emmy. It's not Shakespeare. But I've seen Time Force. I've seen SPD. I've seen Dino Charge. I know what this show is capable of. Seriously, you can make whatever comments you like, but I just wanted to say that it's really frustrating to have people come onto the comments of my videos and ask me to change the way I review a show. I got not one, but two comments last week in a thread, granted, saying that they really like me as a reviewer and a critic, but want me to be a little less critical.
Well, now we're getting into some deep shit. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Also, what? 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 What?
We are 4 episodes into Dino Fury at this point. You know what you're going to get from me, even if you're new. If Dino Fury is your first exposure to how I review things, you can either strap in or hit the road. I am who I am. I am not going to change very much. I get very set in my ways, and I'm actually pretty happy with the way I review things these days. I could stand to get my videos a touch shorter. I'm even thinking about adopting a style similar to Database Ranger with his rapid run-through and a closer look video series, a shorter and longer review done in tandem. However, it rings a little bit hollow for me to say I want to get videos shorter when this is the 6th paragraph of this script and I haven't started reviewing the episode. So let's get to that. Let's take a look at the 5th episode of Power Rangers Dino Fury, Winning Attitude.
Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
Yeah, and make sure you got your notifications set up by hitting that little bell icon.
Right, you. What he said was, you can consider checking us out on Patreon or Ko-fi at OrangeRangerVideos.
I'm going to go ahead and mention this now because I first noticed it during the theme song, but it was a problem throughout the episode. Due to some kind of a transmission error or technical problem with Nickelodeon's feed of the episode, there were significant audio issues with the episode. Primarily, a lot of the vocalization lines were washed out and just really overwhelmed by a bass line that was way louder than it usually is.
Get on with it!
Maybe I should try washing out your vocals with a strong bass line, MPG. Anyway, Izzy is at the track training for a race with the help of her cousin Lily, who is a medal-winning sprinter at the Special Olympics. For those who are unaware, the Special Olympics are basically an alternate version of the Olympic Games held for athletes with various types of disabilities. The show weirdly skirts carefully around this explanation though, with Izzy explaining that the games are for all sorts of people, not just those with intellectual disabilities.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
And not to worry, the show didn't make the terrible mistake of trying to cast someone to play a Special Olympics athlete. They went straight to the source. Lily is played by Sarah Dalton, an equestrian, or horse rider, for the New Zealand Special Olympics squad.
Yes! That's awesome!
I really only skimmed past the contents of this scene for time. It's actually very cute, and Lily is very endearing. The other Rangers come and meet Lily, and then when she leaves, they tell Izzy that Solon wants to see them. Guessing it wasn't an emergency then. At Dinohenge in the base, Solon tells the Rangers that she may have located Izzy and Javi's Zords, or at least she has an idea where they might be. Their keys were in the orb. The orb was located in the forest, so the Zords, might be in the forest. Ollie says they've likely been buried over 65 million years, but Solon says she can invent around that issue. Then Jane goes, "Hey, kids!"
Shut up! As in, close your mouth and stop talking.
Okay. Credit where it's due. This scene is actually not all that bad. Jane and Jayborg are filming what's basically a PSA on behalf of BuzzBlast, letting a bunch of little kids know what to do if they see a Sporix or a Sporix beast. Oddly enough, the advice is to call the Ranger hotline instead of, telling a grown-up. I know that kids are getting smartphones younger and younger these days, but all of them? That's really better than telling them to tell a teacher or their parents? Anyway, the song was cute. Jane and Jayborg performed it well. The kids were engaged and they learned. They did a really great job. You can sense the but then coming, can't you? But then, a Sporix crawls up Jane's clothes and she starts squirming around. You see, it's funny because Jane told the kids to stay calm and then she freaked out. Hypocrisy is hilarious.
This isn't funny!
One of the kids indeed stays calm, grabbing Jane's phone and calling the Ranger hotline. And without Jane having to do the boogie woogie dance, this scene might have been pretty decent instead of topping out at "didn't make me reach for the Advil." The Sporix evolves into a Sporix Beast, Brine Blast, and Boomtower and Mucus immediately beam down. The ladies and kids run away right after Jane tells the kids to not make any sudden movements. Run! There was no pause. It was so weird. First morph with all 5 Rangers together, and it looks really good. Izzy in particular looked great. However, I only noticed this because of a GIF on Twitter that was zoomed in on her morph directly, but she does this upward slash backhanded during her roll call, but when she comes back down, she jitters is the best way I can think to describe it. There's either several frames missing from that part of the shot, or she dang near fell over while doing it.
Moving
As I pointed out, the Sporks Beast's name is Brine Blast because it's some kind of a fish with the ability to spray water. We get the Sporks Beast's name from Boom Tower, despite the fact that he beamed down as soon as Brine Blast evolved, and they didn't talk to get the name to Boom Tower. By the by, you may have also noticed my use of the term evolved there once again, and it is now officially intentional. Sporks are not eggs. Amoebas are not eggs. When a creature is defeated, it doesn't go back into an egg form. I'm using the term evolved. After that, we get a pretty weird fight scene. Mucus runs and hides. That's totally normal, obviously. But then Izzy decides to use the Elasto key, and Zato uses the Hyper key. And with these keys, they do absolutely nothing. They get the armors, but they never use the powers. The next time we see Izzy, she doesn't even have the armor on. In another actually cute moment, Brine Blast gets cornered and claims that they have kids that they have to protect, but it's actually just a distraction to give Boom Tower time to catch up, smacking Zato and Izzy away. Javi catches up with them and fights Boom Tower using the shield key and actually using its power this time. The two fight to a standstill and the bad guys leave. I get the purpose of the next scene in terms of the plot, but whoo boy did it make Izzy look like a terrible human being. She raced back to the track for an afternoon training session with Lily, but Lily shows up 30 minutes late. When Izzy asks why, Lily said she had to go shopping with a friend. Izzy is incredulous, whining about the pressure from her dad to win this race, and just totally unable to believe that Lily would bail on her like this. She's whining about her first world problems to a woman who has a developmental disability.
Excuse me, the f did you just say?
Again, I get the context of this scene, and the kids' show writing made it painfully clear where this story was going. But we literally just met Izzy, and they are already assassinating her character. Let's let the villains take a crack at the comic relief. It also doesn't really work. Okay, so Mucus overheard the Rangers talking about how Solon was going to be looking for the Zords in the forest and went back to tell Void Knight. Mucus and Brine Blast stumble their way looking through some maps of the forest until Void Knight comes out to shut them up, telling them that the scientist at Area 62 basically found the Zords 20 years ago, detecting a strange and unidentifiable metal under the hills. With this information, they decided to draw a big red circle on a map and knock off for a 20-year lunch. But that's okay, because at least those scientists had a plan. Unlike Void Knight. Okay, Void Knight has a plan this week, designing a drill bomb to drill underground and blow up the Rangers' Zords. However, I'm talking about something a little longer term, besides collect Sporks until further notice. Anyway, it's time for Izzy to feel like the terrible person that she was for what she did to Lily. Javi notices that Lily won't come over and talk to Izzy before the race, but then someone randomly wheels a girl in a wheelchair up to Izzy. Okay, this girl's name is Mona, she has a broken leg, and she is Lily's friend. Lily was helping her shop yesterday, and that's why she was late coaching Izzy. I guess old Izzy was just jumping to conclusions. And I mean, Izzy's pretty good at jumping, because she's a track star.
That was not funny.
Izzy wants to go apologize to Lily, but it's race time. There's an Asian girl that's set up as being a rival to Izzy, despite them literally establishing that the girl is brand new in town. And
I've never cared so little about anything in my life.
a lump of athletes forms haphazardly near a starting line. One of the extras looks directly into the camera. These two apparent rivals banter at each other back and forth for a minute, and the race begins. The one saving grace of this episode. Background music that once again sounds like it was just made using a Nintendo Entertainment System. Gimme that 8-bit background music. Mwah.
4-star, best in the city. Zag it!
For some reason, right before a commercial, we cut back to Jane and Jayborg, not even putting up signs for the Ranger hotline, but just admiring the ones that are already there?
Get out of my office!
Actually though, are you ready for this? These two actually made me laugh. I don't think it's for the reason that the script intended, but they made me laugh. Brian Blast starts spraying water at them, and the two of them jump into a dumpster to hide, which is precisely where the two of them belong. Then Brian Blast goes, "It's time to take out the trash!" And I could not have agreed more. For some reason, the scene keeps going past my laughter.
Are you sure? Okay.
The dumpster sprayed down a road about 6 blocks as they call the Ranger hotline, then running into a cop car, and the cop gives them a ticket despite the fact that he could clearly see the giant monster 6 blocks down the road.
Let's get broken.
It just keeps getting worse. Solon calls Zato and Izzy, and Izzy is literally tilting herself back and forth, pretending to run. The background behind her is not moving. For Zordon's sake, I swear Simon Bennett is testing me. He saw some of the reviews I did of some of his Beast Morphers episodes and decided to write a script full of these little things just to see what I'd catch.
Stop! Stop it! Stop taunting me!
Quick side note, I realized that I'm using a ton of cutaway gags from JonTron, especially this week. I get on these weird kicks where I watch like one particular thing at a time, binge watching it, and lately I've been binge rewatching the older, more video game focused episodes of JonTron.
If it gets my cold,
Anyway, Solon tells the Rangers about Brian Blast growing, but the others tell Izzy to focus on the race and that they'll take care of that situation. It's a good thing too, because Nameless Asian Girl has caught up with Izzy, and I swear to Zordon, they throw in this Bloodborne-esque Gregorian chant music that the episode has done absolutely nothing to earn. But then Nameless Asian Girl catches her foot on a root and tumbles down a hill.
Yeah, that's just about right. That's appropriate.
Proving all the more to us what an upstanding and heroic girl Izzy is. She actually has to think about what to do since she has such a big lead. And actually, there's something I'm ad-libbing into the script right here because it's a point that I just have to make, and I think it's an example of something I was talking about earlier, mentioning these commenters that say Power Rangers is just a kid's show. You shouldn't read so much into it. You shouldn't expect too much from it. If Power Rangers really is written for an audience that young, why is there a moral dilemma right here? Izzy should have just gone and helped because that's setting the example. That's the right thing to do. Little kids, like the kind people are insisting the show is written for, aren't going to understand the moral dilemma of winning the race versus helping someone. Izzy is a Power Ranger. She should just help people, right? But you know, it's okay that Izzy needed a second to think about it because that gave me a second to think about the fact that there really should be spotters along the entire course, paramedics and first aid that could jump on this kind of situation right away. Of course, Izzy decides to give up her big lead and help this girl after remembering Lily's sage advice about there being more important things than winning. Meanwhile, the 4 Rangers summon their 3 Zords. Javi goes with them, the 4 Rangers beaming up to the cockpit. And then the 5 Rangers put their swords in the stands. Yes, including Izzy, who isn't actually there.
I think I'm supposed to be upset right now, but more or less I think I've just gone fully numb.
Brian Blast has the tactical advantage because if you haven't caught on to the fact that this is a new Zord episode by this point, I'm not particularly sure what you want me to tell you. Those spotters that I mentioned earlier finally show up, taking the Asian girl away. Izzy starts to run the race again, but then overhears Boom Tower. Following the voice, she sees Boom Boom and Mucus sending the drill down in the ground to get out of the rain.
The ants go marching 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah.
Izzy confronts them, holding out her key. For some reason. I would say to morph, but that's not how they do that dance. It was just a contrived way for her to use the key to sense that her Zord was somewhere nearby. She instamorphs and chases the two off, but there's a whole mountain between her and her Zord. Not really, the two were drilling into flat ground, but I guess we have to work with the Sentai footage here. Izzy has the Rangers position the Megazord in front of the mountain, so Brine Blast will Brine Blast them and destroy the mountain. It's a pretty clever idea, and indeed it works. The Tiger Claw Zord is freed and attacks. Haha! It's a cat versus a fish. A fish that's trying to blast the naughty kitty with water. Cute! They combine, forming the Dino Fury Megazord Tiger Claw formation, which, besides adding some Lego pieces all over the body, swaps out the key that forms the head and the chest piece. Let's try the jet boost, Izzy says. The ancient tiger power of jet boosting. I mean, it worked for Jungle Fury, am I right? Tiger Mega Slash, because we're not using up that much of the creativity here, and we barely even hear Dino Fury victory over that booming bass line. I was actually hoping that the villains would push forward a little bit in their quest for the Sporix, and indeed they do, with Boom Tower finding this one. Izzy suddenly realizes that she's not at the race, and while she obviously can't win, she has never not finished a race. The others encourage her to get back in there, and she does so, finding Lily and Mona waiting for her at the finish line. Yada yada, Izzy apologizes, Lily forgives her, and then we get a moment that's almost too heavy for this show. When Izzy says that she really wanted that medal, Lily gives her her Special Olympics medal. I don't want to understate this. For all intents and purposes, that is an Olympic medal that she just gave her friend as a prize for her sportsmanship. Wonder if it'd be heavy enough to balance these scales. Episode 5, Winning Attitude. Pros, great guest spot with a nice message, neat new Zord fight, and a minor victory for the bad guys. Cons, an episode beset with errors in editing, the worst of the moral of the day type of episode we've gotten in the past, and really, the cameo was wasted. I don't think I've ever seen a show start so strong and then drop an absolute dud of an episode like this. Winning Attitude gets 1 scale out of 5.
It's awful.
Dalton's cameo was amazing and really great publicity for both the Special Olympics and Power Rangers. One thing that I really like is they didn't just try to force Dalton into this, saying that she was Izzy's cousin or friend or whatever, and try to tie this into horses somehow, but they gave her a character to play, which demonstrates that people with developmental disabilities are also capable of acting. I just wish that she had been able to act in a better episode. Wow, does this episode just scream, introduce the new Zord, and just write some kind of story around that. Everything just felt so empty, so meaningless. This is an episode that was just going through the motions. The race storyline was so unengaging that I literally, seriously, do not know if they ever bothered to give that Asian girl a name. The bad guys' plan literally revolves around something they overheard the Rangers talking about. The worst episodes of Power Rangers have a very obligatory feel to them, and this was a shining example. Well, I'd assume the 6th episode is when they're going to let Javi get his Zord, so here's hoping they've gotten all of that out of their system and we'll get back to the strength of the first 4 episodes. Let's take a peek at the 6th episode of Dino Fury, Superstition Strikes. Amelia thinks she's cursed with bad luck and is reluctant to help the Rangers, afraid she'll cause more harm. But when monsters attack the base, she learns the truth about luck. Huh. Guess I was wrong. Subverted my expectations. That's a good sign. That's going to do it for another Power Rangers Dino Fury episode review. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Now that the video's done, you can let me know your thoughts on this episode as well as my review of it down in the comments below. And considering the fact that some of you were already upset at how critical I was, I'm expecting some very interesting comments down there. Feel free to leave them. But while you are down there, make sure you smack that thumbs up button to let me know that you enjoyed this video. And if you'd like an additional way to support the channel, remember to check out my Teespring store with shirts and socks and mugs and everything with my old and new channel logos on them. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you. In case any of you have not noticed, I have a small little lump above my left temple. I don't know what it's called though. That involves trapped glandular excretion. I knew that word was going to screw me up. If Dino Fury, an equestrian or horse rider for the new. After that, we get a pretty weird fight scene. Lily was helping Mona shop yesterday, and that's why she was late to coach Izzy for the race. Because there's a rivalry set up with this new Asian girl, and it's a... How are they rivals, besides the fact that, of course... I didn't like... The two supposed rivals banter at each other back and forth. I look over at the script. Anyway, she tells the Rangers about Brian... They throw in this... But you know, it's okay that it... Meanwhile, the four Rangers... Dalton's cameo was really amazing.